Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So I want to start today's episode by telling you about one of my least favorite things as a private school leader. And near or at the top of the list is what I call the August apology. The August apology. And I'll be in my office and a teacher will text me and say, hey, do you have a few minutes? Or perhaps they'll just appear in the main office and ask if I have a few minutes, and they come in and they say, I never thought I would do this. They're standing right in front of you and, they say, hey, I wasn't really looking, but this school reached out to me and especially if it's like the public school or a suburban public school, and it's a lot more money, better benefits, a pension. And they apologize and they say, I never thought I would do this. And they're standing there. Okay. And there's a lot going through your mind. I mean, right now, what I'm thinking about is August of 2007. Because the day before the first day of school, one of my high school math teachers walked into my office day before the first day of school and said, I never thought I would do this. I'm so sorry, but this public school offered me this position, and I'm going to take it. And the outcome of that is that because of the timing, I wasn't able to find a math teacher for a while, 12 weeks actually, and that meant that I was teaching 9th grade geometry and 10th grade geometry, so 2 periods a day. I had done well in geometry in high school, but I'm not a math teacher, and so I was teaching myself the lesson the night before and then teaching it to the kids the next day for 12 weeks. So I just want to say that I feel your pain when it comes to all of the emotions that might be coming up for you right now just listening to this because of what you've heard in the past. And also, if you're listening to this in real time, you're hearing this in late July. But there's a reason that I'm talking about the August apology is because I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm trying to equip you and then hope you never need these strategies. Because on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, we are going to discuss what to do when a teacher quits in August. So I want to talk about your teachers at your school for just a minute. Most of our teachers are awesome, hardworking educators with a good attitude. And then there are a few teachers that are best described as difficult. So do you want to spend less time dealing with the difficult teachers at your school? Do you want to have a step-by-step plan for getting your difficult teachers to improve and grow? Well, if the answer is yes, then I want to give you a free gift, and it's called the 7 Strategies to Effectively Deal with Difficult Teachers. And you can grab this guide at theprivateschooleader.com/difficult. And this free guide is a step-by-step plan that you can use to help one of your more difficult teachers improve their performance and improve their attitude. And just a free gift to you to say thank you for listening to the podcast. So you can grab the 7 Strategies to Effectively Deal with Difficult Teachers over at theprivateschooleader.com/difficult. And I want to just say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Some of you have been listening for a long time, and I hope that you've learned some strategies to help as you lead your school, and hopefully I've been able to encourage you along the way and make you feel a little less lonely in this isolated job that we have. I'd like to ask you for a favor, and that is to just please share the link for this podcast with another school leader in your life. Just think of a school leader that you know that you're not sure if they know about the podcast, and just text them or email them the link. They may listen, they may not, but I just think that this content is super important and can be really helpful for school leaders. And also, I want you to just take a moment and think about someone at your school that just seems to be an aspiring leader. They work hard, they add a ton of value, they have a great attitude. And are you thinking of that person? Well, I'd love it if you would share the link of this podcast with them as well. Text them or email them. I'm just trying to get this content out to as many school leaders as possible so that it encourages them and helps them to help these kids. So thank you for that. And then finally, before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder that, what we do is a very difficult, very emotional job, and it takes a toll. It causes us to maybe just see our identity as the school becomes our identity. And I've said before that, too many private school leaders are sacrificing their identity on the altar of their school. And so how do we get out of that? How do we create boundaries? How do we maximize our time? How do we stop dipping in and out of email all day long? And how do we, just go from where we are to where we want to be? And how can we make this transformation? Because it feels impossible. Well, if you're listening to this in real time, you have to ask yourself that question. Do I want next school year, this coming school year, to be exactly like the last one? Maybe you do. Maybe so. That's awesome. But if you know that it can be better, if you think you have a little bit of hope that it could be better, I'd just encourage you to check out Thrive Academy, theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. It's an online digital course with 9 hours of video content, 39 lessons, an 86-page workbook with guided notes and discussion questions and tracking calendars. And, that might sound like a lot. And like, well, when the heck am I going to have time to do that? Well, here's the thing. It's yours. You have access to it forever. And I'm telling you, the strategies work. They're sustainable, and they can make a difference for you as a school leader. And so, again, just check it out, privateschoolleader.com/thrive, and I think it can help you tremendously. All right, let's talk about the 6 things to do when a teacher quits in August. What are the 6 things that we're going to do when a teacher quits in August? Number 1, have a pity party. Number 2, keep it professional. Number 3, start immediately and work the plan. Number 4, catastrophize. Number 5, come up with plan B. And number 6, remind yourself of past successes. Okay. Number 1, have a pity party. So I will tell you that I've gotten better at this, but it's really only been in the past 5 years. And I'm 32 years into this career as a private school leader. I used to disproportionately get emotional, sad, distraught, anxious, angry, whatever you want to put in there, all the emotions. I used to disproportionately feel those emotions when one of my teachers would resign in August. And it would just be so frustrating. You have the schedule completed and you have rooms assigned and, books ordered and you just feel like, that calendar flips over to August 1st and you feel like you're cruising, and then you get this big surprise. And so I think it's important to have a pity party for yourself. And I just think maybe your pity party only lasts an hour. I usually give myself 12 to 24 hours, and just feel it. It's okay to feel mad and to feel disappointed and to feel, frustrated, and you just wish you could pay the teachers more, and you wish that you had, you're mourning the future of what you saw with this teacher at your school, because if you invited them back, it was for a good reason, and now they're gone. And not only does this create a new problem at a time when you're really busy, is you got to find a teacher and find them fast, but it's also that you're losing that teacher. So there's all kinds of emotions that go along with that. And I think it's important to acknowledge them, to feel them, to sit with those feelings and emotions, but to only do it for a short period of time. And so I know that some of you out there, you might have the ability to just put a lid on that, compartmentalize it to such a degree that you immediately move on. But I am encouraging you that instead of wallowing in those feelings for days or weeks, just to give yourself permission to have a pity party, but to keep it to 24 hours or less. All right, let's go on to number 2. Number 2 is keep it professional. Okay, so what do I mean by keep it professional? Well, we need to be careful not to badmouth that teacher. They walk out of the office, you're frustrated, you're annoyed, you can't believe that, and here's the other thing. Let me just pause for a minute and do a quick sidebar. Every school is different with regards to, some have offer letters and all the people all the teachers are at-will employees. Some have annual contracts, some have multi-year contracts. And so again, if this person is breaking their contract, then there might be some things that you can do from a legal perspective to not let them leave. But many of our schools, unless we want to engage legally with this person, get our attorney involved and try to get that person to stay, we're probably just going to let them go. We're probably going to let them walk away. We're probably going to let them, go to that school. And so that doesn't mean that we have to like it, but, I'm just pointing out that many of us, not only do we have the disadvantage of not being able to pay what the public schools pay, but we also have the disadvantage where we don't year to year or multi-years have the ability to provide the security and predictability for teachers for years into the future. And so, back to what we need to do about keeping it professional. Don't allow your emotions to control your words. And so let's start with that moment when they're standing there. It used to be that I sometimes would let my emotions out, and they would tell that I was upset, and they could tell that I was frustrated and that I was disappointed and that I thought that this wasn't a display of integrity and that this wasn't ethical. You made a promise. You said you were coming back, blah, 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 blah. All right. If nothing is going to change, if nothing that I say is going to change the situation, do we really think that if we shame this person or make them feel guilty or make them feel bad, that they're going to be like, yeah, you know what, you're right. I'm going to tell that public school no and turn down that extra money, and I'll be back. I'll be here on the first day of school. That's not going to happen. Okay. So I think that it's important to not allow our emotions to control our words in that situation. It's important for us not to badmouth that teacher to other people after they communicate their decision. And then it's also important for us to not over-explain their reasons to justify the untimely opening. Okay? So let me explain what I mean by that. Don't over-explain your reasons to justify the untimely opening. So, we want to look competent. We want to look prepared. We want to look ready for this school year to all of our teachers and to all of our staff. And then all of a sudden, this teacher leaves. And especially if they're a teacher that, the parents and kids really liked. And so it's really not our business to explain and say, well, they took a job at such and such school, or they took a public school job because it was more money and it was this and that and the other thing. Honestly, we shouldn't be saying any of that stuff. We should just say so-and-so won't be returning. We wish them well. So I know that I have that tendency to want to over-explain that person's reasons for leaving to provide some justification and rationalization for why all of a sudden there's an opening. But, that isn't what we should be doing. Okay. And so as hard as it is, we know what it's like as private school leaders to make decisions or know things in private that we can't share publicly. And so we just need to keep it professional when it comes to their reasons, how we act when they tell us, and then not bad-mouthing that person afterwards. Okay. Then number 3 on our list of what to do when a teacher quits in August is start immediately and work the plan. All right, so that one sounds like a no-brainer, but I think that taking action helps us to move on quickly from the feeling distraught about, this thing that was out of our control. We like control. And even if you're not a control freak, you still like control. And that teacher leaving is out of your control. And whether or not there's going to be a great teacher that's replacing that person on the first day of school, that's kind of out of your control too. But what we can do is everything that's in our control. So you write the ad, you run the ad everywhere, you vet the resumes, you do the 15-minute Zoom calls to reduce the total number of people that you're going to bring in. And then you decide who you're going to bring in, and you bring them in for the in-person interview, and maybe you have them teach a model lesson. You call the references. Like, these are all actions that you can take. Now, are they time-consuming at a busy time of year? Yes. Is there anyone else that can kind of help with some of that? Maybe not. And so it sucks. It just sucks. And that's why we have an emotional reaction to it. But what I've found is that if you just begin immediately, work the plan, put it out there as much as possible, try and get as creative as possible, contact the college recruiters, everything that you can and that you put out there as quickly as possible to start immediately, work the plan, find some teachers, start interviewing. Everything that is action is going to move this toward the goal, which is hiring a teacher. All right. Number 4 on our list of things that we're going to do when we have a teacher that quits in August is we're going to decatastrophize. And this is something that I've kind of had a problem with over the last, year and a half, where sometimes when you're compromised as far as like cognitive load or decision fatigue or emotional energy or all of the above and physical energy, then and your brain is kind of flooded with cortisol, it's easy to catastrophize a situation, whether it's with a parent or a teacher that resigned in August. And so there's a way to decatastrophize. And number 1, you identify the catastrophic thought, because that's very easy to perseverate on that thought. So if you can see it, name it, okay, what's the thing that you're really, really focused on? What is that catastrophic thought? It is, I have no idea what we're going to do if I can't find a teacher. Okay, well, just identify that, maybe jot it down. So that's step 1. Number 2 is to evaluate the evidence. So when you're trying to decatastrophize, you identify the thought and then you evaluate the evidence. And so there's evidence for and against that catastrophic thought. Is it, what is the likelihood of this happening, that I'm going to find somebody? But also asking yourself, have I been in similar situations before? Have we had teachers quit in August before? Have we found teachers before? And maybe the answer is no. I mean, for me in 2007, it was 12 weeks of teaching geometry. So sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, but evaluate the evidence can help bring down the level of catastrophe that your brain and the intrusive, invasive thoughts are having, kind of hijacking that amygdala in your brain. Consider less extreme outcomes when you're decatastrophizing. So instead of thinking my life will be ruined, I will get fired, the school will close. No. Think in the terms of I might not find a teacher, but school will still open on time. In other words, what's the worst possible outcome? Can you live with that? Even if it's not great. And oftentimes that will just turn the temperature down on the whole catastrophizing aspect of a teacher resigning in an untimely manner. Number 5 on our list of how to decatastrophize. Number 4 actually is to develop coping strategies. And then number 5 is to reframe the thought. And so, for example, if I fail, my life is over. Well, we know that's not true. You think about, well, if we don't fill this position by the first day of school, that will be disappointing and difficult, but it's not going to end my career or close the school. So, again, it's not like we're settling. It's not like we're just accepting our fate that we're not going to find anybody, but catastrophizing the situation when someone resigns in August is not going to serve you at a moment in time when you need to be at your best to really focus and to fill this position. And so decatastrophizing is number 4 on our list. And number 5 is to come up with plan B. Okay. So I kind of cringe when I hear from a client or a podcast listener that they might be the one teaching the class until they find someone. And that's because it brings back that memory for me about geometry 9 and geometry 10 for 12 weeks back in the fall of 2007. And so the problem is that as soon as someone resigns in August, then this countdown clock begins. And that countdown clock is either to the first day of new teacher orientation or the first day of school. And, it's stressful. But what is plan B? Is plan B you? Hopefully not, but it might be. A lot of that depends on the size of your school. Is plan B a building sub? Or a substitute teacher that's on your sub list, and maybe they're not even certified in that area. And that's not good, but it's temporary and it buys you some time. And so my point is that the day after that person resigns, you also need to be working on plan B. Don't work without a net. Okay. So think about the trapeze artists. Up on the trapeze, swinging, flying, flipping, catching each other. That's you trying to find a teacher. But the big net below them is plan B. Okay. So you're coming up with 2 plans. One is find a teacher. And the second one is, what if we don't find a teacher? And I'm telling you, it will lower your stress. And, that trapeze artist, if they miss when they're trying to catch someone, they fall, but they don't fall all the way to the concrete. They fall to the net. And so you need to come up with plan B while you're working on plan A. And I think too many school leaders focus so much on plan A and the countdown clock that they don't come up with plan B. And then that just causes a lot of kind of subconscious stress during the search. And then it almost seems like a surprise when it comes down to the wire and plan B could have been set in motion sooner. And then finally, number 6 is to remind yourself of past successes. So here's the thing. There have been times in the past for you or other people that you work with or other school leaders that you know where an August apology has turned into finding someone and that person worked out just fine. Or there have been times, and I'm going to tell you a couple of examples, where I had an August apology and I was freaking out. And then the person that I hired turned out to be fantastic. And so here's the problem is that when your brain is flooded with cortisol, we're very poor. Our memory becomes pretty poor. And we don't remember and we don't stop and think about past situations, past August apologies that actually worked out well. We don't stop and think about past situations when we found the right person at just the right time or at the very last minute. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do is to remind yourself of past successes, and I'm going to give you a strategy for that in a minute. But I just want to share 2 really quick stories about stuff that happened with me. Okay? So the first one was just a few years ago, about 3 years ago. It was the last week of July. One of my math teachers I got an August apology, late July apology. And I had just spent 3 weeks interviewing. We were getting close to the first day of teacher orientation. I had offered it to my first choice. They turned me down. Offered it to the second choice. They turned me down. And then I had only a third and final option. And I offered her the job. And she turned it down. And this was at like 6:55 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. And the reason I remember it so clearly as far as the time and the day is because I hung up with that person when she kindly and gratefully said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept the position. And I just thought, you know what? Let me just open up my email inbox and see if I got anything from the incoming resumes. And I did that about 10 minutes later, and at 7:05, I opened up my email, and there was an email that had come in at 7:03, 2 minutes before I opened my email, from a teacher that was moving from another state to our city, and interviewed that person, hired that person, and they worked out pretty well for at least a couple of years. And so that's one story. And then another quick story is many years ago, this is like early 90s, mid 90s, I had a PE teacher quit resign in like late June. And so I'm advertising most of the summer. I'm looking, nothing is coming in. And now it's August, and now it's the first week of August. Now it's the second week of August. I still have nothing. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call. And there's this guy who his job took him from Columbia, South Carolina to our city in Western Pennsylvania. And his wife had been teaching at a private school in South Carolina, health and PE for 13 years, coached a volleyball team to 2 state championships, and she was moving as well, and she was looking for a job. Hired her, and she was at the school for 25 or 26 years and became an icon. And so it does happen, but you know what? We forget about it, and we need to not forget about it, especially in those moments when we're so stressed out. And so what I recommend for you to do is to start a Google Doc, and then just pause for a moment. And you're thinking, well, I don't really need the Google Doc now because, knock on wood, right now I've got my staff and hopefully don't have any August apologies. Okay. Well, then that's a really good time to use that extra little bit of brain space to think about your past wins. Let's call them wins, where you had a summer resignation, and then you were able to find somebody, and they actually worked out pretty well. And so just in that Google Doc, I don't know, title it August Apologies or whatever, something, and list a few of them. And then, let's say, God forbid, but it might happen that you get an August apology, this August, and it works out. Then go to that Google Doc and put it in there, because here's the thing, 2 or 3 years down the road, when you get another August apology, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, you can pull out that Google Doc, and it is going to make a difference when you read that, and it's going to give you a little bit of courage and a little bit of peace and be like, okay, we've got this. And isn't it something that is huge that you would pay top dollar for when you're really, really super stressed out, to move from that to we've got this? That's huge. And I really believe that having a strategy where you can remember past wins with August apologies can help with that. All right. So what are the big takeaways for today's episode? Number one, when we're talking about what 6 things to do when a teacher quits in August. Number 1, have a pity party. Number 2, keep it professional. Number 3, start immediately and work the plan. Number 4, decatastrophize. Number 5, come up with plan B. And number 6, remind yourself of past successes. And your call to action is that if, unfortunately, you have a teacher that quits in August, use these 6 steps. Don't even think, just do. Use the steps. They'll be in the show notes at theprivateschooleader.com/episode 93. Lastly, a quick reminder about the new resource that I've created just for you. 7 strategies to help effectively deal with difficult teachers. And this is your strategies and your plan that will help you to improve the performance and attitude, behavior of your difficult teachers. So 7 strategies to effectively deal with difficult teachers. You can grab that for free at theprivateschooleader.com/difficult. That's at theprivateschoolleader.com/difficult. And a quick reminder about Thrive Academy at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to email me at mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss an episode. A new episode comes out every week, and if you would write a review and rate the podcast, I'd really appreciate it wherever you listen. That helps the podcast get pushed out as suggested content to school leaders all over the world. I think we're in 57 countries now, and the algorithm is pushing that out there and helping people all over the place. So I'm on social media at Instagram, on Instagram at The Private School Leader, and on Twitter at The PS Leader. And if you got value, please share this link with another school leader in your life or an aspiring leader at your school. Just text them or email them the link to the podcast, and hopefully they'll get value from it as well. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I appreciate you so much on all of your hard work for the lucky kids and teachers at your school. Thanks for taking time out of your week to join me here on the podcast, and I will see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.